A man getting bit by an alligator and he screams. Sit down, George. Okay, right? Oh! Oh!
The first one you did up here was much better.
Oh!
No, not an owl. A real scream of pain.
I'm Anna. My whole life, I've loved watching movies. I love the classics, the feel-good adventures. There's always been one unique thing that connects my favorite movies. It's a sound effect of a man screaming, and it's known as the Wilhelm Scream. It's different from a normal scream. It sounds almost joyful. And every time I hear it in a movie, I feel comforted. It's like a wave from someone mysterious beyond the screen. One day I decided that I needed to know more about the Scream. As I looked for answers, one name kept popping up: Steve Lee.
Wilhelm! Yeah, I'll just fill my pipe.
No, Wilhelm, don't fill your pipe. You need to keep moving. Up, see? You should have listened to me. My dad loved film. He loved movies, especially science fiction films. He compiled the very first reference guide to science fiction and fantasy films. Sundays was a special day because Dad would take me to screenings at a little theater in Hollywood called the Gordon Theater. And I grew up on all these, the old George Pal War of the Worlds, Forbidden Planet, Day the Earth Stood Still, watched them incessantly. And I would record the audio with a little cassette recorder, and I'd listen to them over and over. I started realizing all the studios have different versions of different sounds, like Paramount's guns sound different than Warner Brothers and that sort of thing. And there's this one scream in particular that's in all these Warner Brothers films. And I just knew, okay, this is one of those things that just gets reused. Then in May of 1977, this little film called Star Wars comes out. And it was just, this is amazing. I knew the name Ben Burtt, but that article in Cine Fantastique was the first really in-depth article with Ben, an interview with Ben, that he detailed his work on the film. And he talks about his favorite scream. He says, oh yeah, it was in all these Warner Brothers films. And I'm like, yes, that's it.
When I was in junior high school, I started making little films with my parents' 8mm camera. My first year of college, I was still making movies, so I decided that, maybe I'll give this thing a shot. I transferred for my second year to USC Film School. That's where I met Ben Burtt. Ben and I, we were into these sort of Hollywood action, adventure, having fun kind of movies, so we immediately kind of got along. Ben lived in New York, so when he went to go home from USC, he would drive. So he would listen to old movies, and they become kind of old friends. And he recognized the Wilhelm Scream. The earliest film that we had noticed it was in was Charge at Feather River. There was a character in there, one of the troopers, whose name was Wilhelm. There's a scene where he's sitting on a horse and an arrow comes in and sticks in his thigh, and he goes, "Ah!" like that. So we just called it the Wilhelm Scream. We would tell our friends about it. So other people started using it because they thought it was fun too.
I latched onto it very early on. My partner, Richard Anderson, of 40 some odd years, was arguably the first user of it. He and Ben Burtt, they grew up together, they went to SC together, and they shared a love for iconic sounds and tropish, cliche sounds like that.
I met Mark Mangini when I was doing the first Star Trek movie. Mark was working in the Paramount sound effects department at the time.
Able to retrieve their pattern enterprise.
In science fiction and genre filmmaking, what we get is kind of a blank slate from which you have to build from the ground up everything that you might hear if that reality actually existed.
Rolling camera.
We have speeds, and I'm going to...
This is really cool. I mean, I'm on a spaceship, but listen right now, there's nothing. Let's try something sleek and modern, like a brand new spaceship just off the assembly line. Nice and sleek and, oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, it works. But again, this ship is well weathered and old and clunky. It needs something more lived in, more used, more rusty. Want to, hear the rivets. Okay. But what if the director comes to you and says, well, that's good, but it needs to be scary. It needs to be mysterious. Add some spookiness to it. Oh yeah, that's working.
If you think of our eyes and our ears as receptors and our brain as a processing unit, we spend more of our attention span on what we see, and that leaves this kind of free to take it all in without having to be particularly aware, and that's where we get a foothold in a sneaky way.
After leaving Star Trek, where I worked with Steve Flick as well as Mark Mangini, we started working together as a team.
We did the sound for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then that really put us on the map.
Somewhere, I think Poltergeist, we decided that it would be better if we formed a company.
We were forced to incorporate and build a business that we never intended to do. We were all just creatives. We were never business people.
The shop I was at had different incorporations and different names. I always knew it as Weddington Productions. I started working in the sound effects library, and I'd listened to their films over and over, so I knew the kind of effects they'd made. There's Final Countdown, there's Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's, get further down, there's Gremlins,
Steve Lee, come to the front immediately. Steve Lee.
Richard, what's it like after?
It's delicious and it's pink. It tastes like pink. I'm getting my daily quotient of artificial flavor and artificial color.
It was a great bunch of insanely creative people making silly sounds for movies, and it's the best time of my life there.
Oh, there you go. That's a Weddington show.
Yeah.
Hey. It was an inside joke with a lot of sound editors. Hey, let's put a Wilhelm in there. And it was like, oh, they'll never know. That's so stupid. Oh, let's do it. And then it'd be like, oh, let's see how many times we can get away with it. There's a couple times where, it was like, absolutely not in the movie. We're not putting it in. So I hid it in an explosion. You can't tell. But it's in there. I'm not saying we were the first, but Weddington did a lot of it. I'll definitely say that.
Distant Drums, 1951. It started it all.
A man getting bit by an alligator and he screams.
The first three are like just sort of like just uggs and ows. And then the last three is this very distinctive ah. Those got used for the guy being eaten by the alligator, and then they were archived into the Warner Brothers Sound Effects Library, where they lived for many, many years. Ben Burt found a memo in the Warner Brothers Sound Library that said several actors were called in onto a stage and recorded incidental vocals for Distant Drums. One of the people on the list was Sheb Wooley, and we think he was the likely candidate who performed these screams.
It was a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater.
Sheb Wooley was a fascinating guy. He was an actor, he was a singer, he was on Rawhide.
As the daisies that dance.
Unfortunately, he passed away before we could actually talk to him. I think that's kind of one of the interesting things that sort of adds to the whole mythic stature of the Wilhelm Scream. We're 90% sure it's Sheb Wooley, but I don't know if we're ever going to know for sure, definitively. I've had a very complicated relationship with this scream. probably because I'm one of the most guilty of propagating the whole thing. It wasn't until the early aughts Ben found that memo that said that Sheb Woolley was likely the voice of the Scream. And I updated my article on the web. And that's kind of when the floodgates opened. I mean, that whole period there in the early 2000s is when it really caught fire. I'm forced to think that my putting it out there sort of ripped open Pandora's box. Ben certainly did, and sort of blamed me for turning this little in-joke that he had with friends into this huge thing.
The Wilhelm Scream was the ultimate inside joke. It was only Ben and I, and we only did it for ourselves because we'd go and see each other's movies, and then we'd wait for the Wilhelm to show up. The sphere of people that were in on the joke kept growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and now lots of people know about the Wilhelm.
It got very spread out, and everyone was doing it, and then all of a sudden it became, it's not cool anymore to do the Wilhelm. Don't put that in. We're not doing the Wilhelm. You know, after you do a joke too many times, it's not funny anymore, and you gotta, like, move on.
So what used to be here?
This used to be where Weddington Productions was for many, many years. Oh, man. A lot of great soundtracks made right here. 1993.
Wow.
It's been 30 years.
Wow.
I know that Richard was next to mine because I would creep into his office and lay down on his couch and start whining about my workload. Or I'd lay down and say, Doctor, I think it all started when my dad took me to see War of the Worlds. He'd roll his chair over, oh, interesting. What about your mother? But yeah, so much fun. This was a great time in my life.
Yeah.
And now it's an empty lot with weeds. Yeah, that figures.
There it is. That's the first time right there. Star Wars. And then Empire. Yeah, this is where I started learning. What is that scream I hear everywhere? I would consider myself a second generation Wilhelm user because I learned it in Star Wars. It's the stormtrooper falling down the chute. And then here come other movies. Here's Raiders of the Lost Ark, there it is again. And here's Empire Strikes Back, and here it is again. And my ears grabbing it over and over and over again. Working on a show called Angel. The scene was Angel, our lead character, grabbing a monk who had been turned into a demon, and he throws him off the balcony. And I looked at it, and immediately in my head, I hear the scream. I don't know what it is, but I know. And so I talked to my supervisor on that one. I'm thinking of there's this scream that everybody uses, and what? And he goes, oh, you mean Wilhelm? He goes, yeah, I've got that, I'll be right back.
For kids of my generation, the Wilhelm Scream, we kind of knew it as like the Lucasfilm Scream. I spent like the last decade working in the DC Comics superhero television shows. And I had sort of like a feud with one of the producers. Every episode, I'd sneak in the Wilhelm, he'd get there and go, ah, and yank it out. Finally, when I moved out of editing and into directing, I put in the Wilhelm Scream and he kept it.
How do you feel when you hear it in something now?
I get excited when I hear it now in a modern movie because a lot of people now are pushing back against it. Lucasfilm even made an official statement like we're retiring the Wilhelm Scream from our movies, which, oh my, that's the beginning of the end as far as I'm concerned. Like, no, you have to have it. It just immortalizes your movie.
As I talked to people about the Wilhelm Scream, one thing kept bugging me. Will we ever know for sure if Sheb Woolley is the voice of the Scream? I thought about Steve's suggestion of vocal forensic analysis. I found Rita Singh, an associate research professor at Carnegie Mellon's Center for Voice Intelligence and Security. Her research has found that a human voice has the same amount of unique information as a fingerprint.
I want to give you an idea of what modulation means. These are all the different frequencies, and you can see the modulations, right? The wiggles, right? It's very unique to us in that the kind of modulations that we produce, the harmonics in which we throw energy, and the manner in which those energy patterns change are very unique to us, okay? So now let's go to Sheb Woolley. So this is from the song. This is the scream. Okay. What you see here are the way these harmonics simply flow from the scream to the song.
This is 100% Sheb Woolley. There's no one else.
100%. And I will stand by that. There are things that remain that are very characteristic of you and the way you operate your vocal folds that remain. No two voices can match in this way. It has to be the same person.
I have some news, some
Okay.
exciting news. I did some Googling, I did some research, and I found a forensic vocal researcher. She found that it was 100% a match to Sheb.
That's great. I mean, we were pretty damn sure. I mean, Ben made the call, and I trust his judgment. But unless we did something like this, I thought that there'd be that few percent that we weren't sure.
When I first called you a year ago, what was your impression of me wanting to know about the Wilhelm Scream?
I had gotten a little despondent about it only because Ben Burt and Richard and those guys, it was their thing. And then when I joined the group just a few years later, I, started inflating it. And ultimately I started feeling a little bad about that. And then you call. And I thought, yeah, okay, let's do this. Let's tell the story.
Getting to know Steve, I can see that he still holds on to a lot of guilt. He worries that he ruined something special. But I don't see it that way at all. I think he should feel proud. To me, the Wilhelm Scream is to be shared. It's a link between people, and it will have long passed any one of us.
If I may, I have something I want to get Andrew's reaction on. There is one in Indy 5.
Yes, okay, so they put the Wilhelm back in it. Thank you. Good. So, all right. At least everyone at Lucasfilm hasn't gone crazy.